I'll work together again on the Devil Freight on this one right here. But he did. It was fun to come in early and be part of the whole process because I love all aspects of filmmaking, and they talk about that there's really there's two times when you make your film, as one in the writing and the pre-production, another as you're shooting and capturing everything in the performances, and then again in post-production. And it's really, and there's even a fourth that people don't talk about nearly, which is now then independent filmmaker, as an entrepreneurial filmmaker, then you have to roll it out and do all the PR and marketing and advertising of it yourself. So that's where we're at now, is we're getting it out there.
Yeah, well, from the trailer I saw, I was really, it kind of captured, I was actually really impressed.
Oh, thank you.
And who was the
thank you.
Who was the actor at the very end of that trailer?
Oh, that is Arch Harmon. We have a fantastic cast, and many of the cast members are Chicago-based actors. And that's Arch Harmon. I recently saw him. I was introduced to him through my assistant director, Tommy Sigmund. And Tommy he was more than just an AD at times. He was actually really helped out a lot with casting. And he knew of Arch. And Arch just, theater kind of guy, came in and just owned the room with that character, that creepy magic man, the Bokar character. And we had a lot of fun with him. That was great. Yeah, that's Arch Harmon.
Out of curiosity, can you give a little bit of information, to tell the listeners about the movie without giving the plot away? Because, I want to plug your movie as much as I can with my listeners. And I think a lot of my listeners, because, up to maybe 6 months ago, I didn't even realize on Facebook and all this stuff, there was these horror movie groups and all these other ones. And for tonight, I stuck you on every group I could find that has anything to do with it. And I know that they're listening. And if you can give a little bit about it, to get us intrigued more, without giving any plots away.
Yes, absolutely. It's a film that is about a man who's a photographer who, in his travels, in his commercial work, stumbles across a voodoo painting ceremony while he's on assignment. And because he's in a rut, because he's just in a state of arrested development with his work, and probably to some degree emotionally and physically because of his vices. He's a heavy drinker and a gambler, meaning that he's doing two vices that are incurring a lot of problems on him, which are unnecessary. He's just kind of compounding his situation from being bad to worse. He comes across a voodoo painting ceremony and is enchanted by what he sees, and there's something in him that is a fire is lit in him, that he's going to try this. He's going to try something new, dump all his old work, and try something new and completely throw himself into it. So he makes this commitment to do this, even though he has professional contacts around him that are kind of watching him and telling him to, be careful and watch what he's doing. And he should just stay the course because he'll be okay. And he's really just, kind of driving himself crazy for no reason. And he goes to seek out Ron Fitzgerald's character, who is actually somebody, a character I pulled from visiting lots of botanicas in Chicago, who is a guy who works at an occult, mystic, palm reading type of shop, an occult shop. He goes to him for advice. Ron gives him a little bit of advice. Our main character, Dean McCallum, who's played by August Lissy, takes the advice and completely turns it around from being good advice to completely bad advice and manifests a lot of bad energy. While creating a lot of this bad energy, he creates very interesting, very symbolic artwork. And the people around him realize that his artwork is getting better. And this new direction he's taking is arresting. There's something about it that is engaging. It's visceral. And he's feeding into it. At the same time he's feeding into it, he's really manifesting the worst about himself. So I think the theme through the film was, for a horror film to be based off of a Sylvia Plath quote, I think it might be unusual, but there's this quote that she says that I desire the things that will destroy me in the end. And I thought that was so intriguing for the character, just completely destroy himself, even though he's striving for something, but it's his ego destroying himself. And things around him, he double crosses, he gets in a little bit of trouble with his bookie. He's a gambler, he's drinking and he's making the wrong decisions every single time. And the film just kind of starts to speed up with the consequences, and it speeds up more and more with the consequences to where everything comes to a big crash, a big conflict with everything he's manifested and with everybody around him. So there's lots of references to the occult practices of ceremony painting and lots of left turns that we take. So if an occultist, people that are maybe followers of Kenneth Anger, Crowley, obviously a lot of symbols that we use in here, even numerology and gamblers will realize a lot of the numbers in the systems that we use are just kind of a shout out to those little systems. They're briefly shown throughout the film what our character goes through. And in the end, he actually, I can't say what happens in the end, right, Ron? People have been asking me since the preview came out.
Oh, yeah. It does. It all, he's manifesting things, and he thinks he's winning because the artwork is working, and he's able to bring things into his life, like money and a woman that. So he looks like and he feels like he's on the move and getting what he wants, but then it all unravels on him in the end. So yeah, without any spoilers.
Yeah. See, that's just
and it is.
Cut myself off.
It's a fun ride,
but it's a fun ride, because there's gambling and there's a talking snake and there's bookies and there's demons and tribal music, and there's these.
Well, and there's sensual. There's one of my favorite scenes is there's this very sensual ritual scene that's in there that I don't want to say too much about either, but it's worth the price of admission.
Okay,
right.
I was going to ask you if it was going to be sexy women, cars, money, greed. All the stuff playing into it, and then what? The devil or whatever the other comes and basically at the end, what takes it all away from him?
No, not necessarily. I think that he kind of gets what he wants. Well, put it this way: it's not necessarily taken away from him. It's not taken away from him, but it is the highest degree of destruction. Caused by his own ego
and greed.
It's the weight of his ego that actually ends up destroying him. So everything he manifested, I've had people. Some of the reviews have come in and said, "Oh, I kind of get, that it was, it's the demons around him are pressing on him, and he's allowing it. He wills it every time. Every time he was asked, "Are you sure you want to do this?" He says yes. So his will drove him to his means. And at the little cast and crew party we had, someone asked why we decided to show him destroying himself like that. And I said, well, and why we used the occult text, because it wasn't necessary for the story to be like that. But I thought it was great because the idea being that he originally started to follow these occult books and then went off book to make it work for himself. And it was the idea of taking these books and misunderstanding. It's great to have all these esoteric teachings and this left-hand path teachings. And I just thought, wouldn't it be funny if you just got it all wrong? If you read all with the best intentions, you used either Tony Robbins' method or Crowley's method to improve your life with the right direction at the right time, at the right pace, with the right intention. But what if your intention at the end was ill or bad to begin with? So no matter what method you use of channeling that energy, the results would be that because it's your intention, bad.
Interesting. So he doesn't have the ending like, I can't remember the movie, but these young kids manifest, a whole bunch of things. They got it from the demons, but then at the end, everything turned to, pardon my expression, shit. And I use the word that because, like the car would break down. They wanted a whole bunch of money. They got a bunch of money, right? But like within 24 hours, the money just turned into goop. And, so this one he kind of lease what he acquired, I guess, maybe gets to keep.
Yes. Well, no, it's this is artwork that he's creating. He is creating work to be consumed by an audience. As the character goes from being a commercial photographer, who is commercially successful to a degree, but just outrageously unhappy, to creating something he wanted to deliver in a different way, as if it was a communion, as if he was delivering a message, his emotions, and his visceral energies from the canvas into the audience that was going to see it, that was going to absorb it and see it in the gallery, to get it out to people. I think you have the feeling sometimes in this that he's really chasing some recognition. At the same time, he's battling his own self-loathing to a degree.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he's manifesting not only the art and what he wants out of life, and he's manifesting this art from within, but he's also manifesting the darker and worst parts of himself, which is what winds up spinning out on him.
Oh, wow. Now, out of curiosity, too, who wrote the screenplay?
I did.
Oh, wow. So you did the screenplay and you directed and filmed?
Yes. Well, no, I didn't quite film. I brought in several cinematographers to help me create this. I wrote it, rewrote it, and then said, "Well, let's do it." I was I was working for everybody else at the time as their DP or as part of their crew, and I said, I got this one written. I like it. I'm going to film it, and that's what I did.
Yeah.
So yeah.
How?
And I was here.
A story I thought was
the whole time just encouraging. I'm like, go for it. Let's make a feature, and then you've got something we can get out there and sell and put into the market. Yeah, I was behind him all the way because I knew he wanted to do this, and we worked on some other things together. And I was just like, let's make a feature and let's get this. I love the story and I love the character that I'm playing. Let's do this and let's get it out there.
And that's what you guys are going to be doing here now in the very near future. What, about a week from now?
Yes, well, it goes out for film festivals, and it goes out to reviewers, and we start rolling it out and see who wants to help us spread the word while we're doing it ourselves.
Now, editing a movie, an indie movie, how and what is involved, and how long does it take, like a movie like this, to go through and edit it all out?
That's an interesting question here. Yeah.
What's involved in editing a movie? Lots of scotch.
Or vodka.
No, not quite.
Hell yeah.
Not quite.
Are you sure?
There was 3 roles I played in this, and they're you could look at somebody. The writer in me didn't quite like what the director in me did sometimes, and the director in me didn't have much of a say sometimes. When the editor in me came in and filled that role and cut it down to something that worked better. We had to massage these scenes over and over. I usually edit for a lot of people. I'm brought in as an editor on a lot of projects, and we move through them pretty fast. Editing my own thing, something I wrote myself, was a little more difficult, and I don't feel it really came together until I had a really good soundtrack in place. And I think something just hits sometimes, and it works. And my workflow of editing this project, we got it pretty far. And then when we had the correct soundtrack in place, it went much farther, and it made the film, I think, solid, where I was really happy with it. The soundtrack was important. It was very important to move to these ritual scenes where he's doing ritual magic, and he's conjuring these things about him. And I really needed that soundtrack to rock. So I have a great soundtrack supervisor, Phil Absurd, came in about halfway through us editing and really solidified the feel for the film with a lot of his tracks and helped move it along at a great pace and make it scary, make it intense, And that's what I was looking for. So that really helped the editing. The beginning of the editing was a bit tough because there was so much to weed through that I was emotionally attached to because I wrote it.